Thanks for listening to the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry, here to help educate, motivate, and put you on the right path to take control of your health through weekly discussions on topics in the medical field, public health arena, and in your community. And now your host, Dr. Barry.
Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry. You are listening to episode 34. And like always, if you want today's show notes, please go to drpierresblog.com/LLP034. Again, if you want today's show notes, please go to drpierresblog.com/LLP034. Now, I'm actually excited to be able to tell you to go to the website to listen to the podcast. For those who may already have known, especially if you kind of follow me across social media outlets, my website actually went down on Friday afternoon. Or I would say Friday, around Friday around 1 o'clock Eastern time. So, if you're on the West Coast, it's, pretty much Friday morning for you. And my website went down, and it was down the entire weekend. And I felt like I was almost in jail. I thought my main source of, getting news out there was pretty much gone for a short time being. And, I was actually thankful that, I do the Lunch and Learn with the podcast. I do the Lunch and Learn with the video. So I did have a lot of content in different places. And, it kind of was eye-opening for me. And, I was actually very thankful that I had all of this different avenues that, you guys could still consume content for me. And, all of my content wasn't pigeonholed into one area. So again, like I said, I'm thankful that that I'm able to even say, check out the website, for, this recent episode, because up until the afternoon of my recording this, I didn't even know if that was going to be possible. Today's episode is really going to be one that, you can kind of classify under self-confidence. And it's a continuation of my Lunch and Learn video series that I do on my Facebook page. And it was to kind of commemorate my 50th episode of the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry, the live stream. I've done 50 episodes. I've actually done a few more, but some of them I don't even count, as Lunch and Learn, especially if it's just like a book launch or something in that regards. So it was my 50th episode that I was live streaming, and I wanted to talk about confidence, and I wanted to kind of shed to light, what we've been kind of going through, especially as a professional, especially as a physician who works with patients on a day-to-day basis, really to try to get them to their best optimal health. And a lot of times, a lot of the roadblocks are really because, they're just not confident in what, they perceive will work, or they're not confident in what they do, or they're not confident in the willpower that they have. And I think it's important that as a physician, that we really have to stress the level of importance that it is to be confident and to be trustworthy. Again, kind of noting back to our previous episodes where I talked about, do you trust your doctor? Especially when we're talking about trying to take care of your health and try to take care of your livelihood. So, like always, I do like to kind of start out, the podcast episode with just a story and kind of give you an idea of why, personal self-confidence is so important. And I think this story will kind of help resonate, because for a lot of people who are in, we can, step outside of health right now, but people who are just not in a position that they want to be, a lot of times the rate limiting step, right? And trust me, there's a lot of them. I've talked about, just what being a black male. I talked about what being black in general has as a rate limiting step when we're talking about our healthcare. So I understand there's a lot of different factors, but a big component that I see time and time again is the confidence aspect of it, right? We're just not confident in what we can do, and we're not confident in what we can achieve. So in turn, we don't do it, and we don't achieve it, and then we feed into that lack of confidence in ourselves, and it's just like this a repetitive cycle that a lot of us really can't get out of. So I know as a physician, I know from a societal aspect, I would be considered what you would call made it, right? Like I've made it, like I've reached the pinnacle of my career, especially from a hierarchy standpoint. And when you get to this point, there's not too many other professions that you can go up from here, right? Like when we look across, we see our teachers, we see our lawyers, we see our business CEOs, across the room, right? So there's not too many, careers that we could say, oh, well, you're a doctor, but you could also, go further and do this, right? So, I've gotten here. I became, I went to medical school, graduated medical school, and, I got to have the residency, and I felt unfilled, right? Like I felt unfilled because I felt that what I was doing, even though yes, it was great, like I felt I could do more. And I had all these ideas, right? I had all of these ideas of what I wanted to do, and I realized that the only reason why I wouldn't, even start them, right? Like not even like execute them and fail. There was ideas that I wouldn't even start is because I had this mental roadblock. I had this mental roadblock that says that if it's not 100% perfect, don't even do it. If it's not, 100% guaranteed, don't even do it. And, for those who know, if you're expecting 100% guarantee in this road to success, that's just not possible, right? So I was there. I was comfortable. I was aware of my surroundings, but I was also, not fulfilled from a career, just a mental aspect, right? I just didn't feel the full fulfillment that you'd expect, right, as a physician, right? Again, this is something that I've been wanting to do since I was in elementary school, watching Doogie Howser. Like I knew I wanted to be a doctor. No one could tell me nothing. And I did well in the middle schools and the high schools and the colleges and undergrads, and I did all I was supposed to do it. But now that I became a doctor, it felt like, okay, now that you got it, what else are you gonna do, right? And unfortunately, there was that voice in my head that said, yeah, sure you like blogging, but I don't think you're gonna be that good, so I would just do it part time, right? So and that was really the first thing, especially coming out, right? It was like because I enjoyed it, like I had actually started blogging again, obviously shameless plug, drpiersblog.com. I had started blogging when I was in medical school because it was something where I can kind of get my thoughts out there and something that I could help process and kind of, come back and, read at a later time. And so I was doing that since medical school, and I would periodically, I'd write a post here, I may write a post there, and it was well received, especially by some of my classmates. And so, they were always, enamored by the writing. But it was never something that I felt that I could pursue further. One of the reasons why, because, I really hated English, right? And this isn't something that's uncommon, especially for those who go into, the health sciences aspect of, their teaching, right? Like I know when I was at Florida State University, we only had to take, especially as a pre-med major, 2 courses. I had to take English 1 and English 2. After that, that was it. I didn't have to take any more English courses, right? And I used to hate writing. I used to hate reading. Just something about it that just never enticed me. But here I was, fast forward, I was in medical school, and I realized, like, I actually am pretty good at it. And I actually enjoyed it, right? It wasn't as, dreadful as I used to think it would be. So I was there, and I was almost in this, like, crossroads where I knew what I wanted to do, but I just didn't know how to do it or why I should even do it. And, that's where, and I've said this before on other podcast episodes where I talked about, being fortunate enough to have like a coach, right? So I had a coach who was able to help remove like that mental barrier, right? Who was able to help remove, that roadblock that was in my way that was saying what I couldn't do, what I shouldn't do. And that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, right? Because it allowed me to kind of push forward and allowed me to, open my, horizons to the point where, and when I really started taking the blogging aspect serious, it didn't take 6 months and I already had a mention in Essence magazine, right? So here I go. I was a medical student. I was a medical resident. And, I just become an attending. And right when I started taking my blogging serious, I was already in a magazine. I was already mentioned in the magazine, right? Like, you couldn't tell me nothing. In fact, I still got 2 of those copies. For those who may not know, it was actually the February edition of the Essence magazine. So with the Hidden Figures characters, and they were amazing. Of course, I got a couple copies myself, right? But that's neither here or there. But the important thing I wanted to kind of stress is, I did everything you thought a person who would be successful had done, and still I had those roadblocks, right? So imagine the person who is kind of stuck in their position, right? Especially now, let's bring it back to health, right? Imagine this person who's been trying to lose weight and has failed, right? Imagine this person who's been trying to Imagine this person who's been trying to control their blood pressure and it has failed. Imagine the person who has tried to deal with their depression and they have failed, right? These are people who want to do better, who know they should do better, but they keep running into trials and tribulations. They keep running into roadblocks, whether it be physical, whether it be mental, that they can't get up to the next level. And it was something that I started seeing like across the board. Like, again, I'm fortunate enough I have a lot of friends who, are doing a lot of great things. But I don't know how, I probably stopped counting how often, like, I myself, and again, this was a conversation that, if it had been a year or so in the past, I never would have been able to make. But here I was, being able to tell them, like, hey, no, like, you're an expert, you're amazing, you can do what you want to do, you just have to believe it. And that's really the key, right? Like, you have to believe that the roadblock or that voice that's talking in the back of your head isn't talking loud enough or doesn't have the influence that it wants to have on you. Because I can tell you, it used to have a big influence on me, right? Again, I was the prototypical guy who made it, right? Like, I was married, I had kids, I was a physician. I was like, oh, that I've done it all. And still, like, I did not think I was doing enough. And, like, that sliver, right? Like, that portion, and it wasn't a big portion. I'd say maybe it was like 20% of me felt that it was unsatisfied. But that 20%, like, that voice, because of that 20%, got so loud and it was so deafening that it would almost kind of get me depressed, right? Because I was like, oh man, like, is this it? Like, is it? Because I thought, like, this has been something I've been working towards my whole life, and now that I got there, I was like, oh, wow, did I make a mistake? It was being a doctor ain't as fun as I thought it would be, right? Like, that's where some of the decisions, like that loud negative voice, allows to play in your head. So when I talk to my patients and, I let them know, like, hey, I understand you're trying to lose weight. Hey, I understand, you're trying to deal with your blood pressure. And I know you're taking your medications. I know you're doing your diet control. And it still doesn't seem to be working. I understand all of that. And I want you to know that I'm here to help get you over whatever negative hump is there to make sure you'll succeed. And I think that's something that holds dear pretty much across the board, right? Like, again, I talked to other physicians, I talked to lawyers, I talked to dentists, I talked to, photographers, I talked to all of these people in all these different career fields. And a lot of times I keep seeing the same mindset, right? That just hasn't turned the corner to say, you know what, I'm ready to take off, right? I'm ready to say, I want to go to that next level, and I don't know how am I going to get there, but I know I need to get there. So I find myself, as a physician, sometimes being a counselor and just counseling some of these individuals on what they can do and how they can do it, right, to break through the mental chains, right? And again, like I said, I had a coach, right? Like I had a coach who would get on me all the time. And when I would say, I don't think I could do it, he would say, yes, you can, right? Like, he would always make it a point to give me those positive affirmations. For a lot of us, we don't get positive affirmations, right? We just have to go. We just have to go do, and when we fail, we hear a lot of more people, and we hear a lot more chitter chatter about us failing. And I'll be honest, right? I used to be the type where I wouldn't do something strictly for the fear. I wouldn't do something strictly for the fear that person A would know that I failed, right? And I didn't want to fail in front of person A. And that my drive not to fail in front of person A made me not even take an action. So I wouldn't even take the action needed to, write and, get a website and do all these things that, that would have made myself official a long time ago. Like I wouldn't have done any of that, right? Because I was afraid that, this so-and-so was going to see it and they were going to see that it wasn't that good and they were going to ridicule me. And I didn't want that, right? So I wanted to avoid the ridicule, like everyone does, right? No one wants to get ridiculed. No one wants to be made fun of. No one wants to be the butt of the jokes. No one wants to be the butt of the jokes. But what tends to happen, standing still, is almost, as akin to, going backwards. And we're in a day and age where you have to be a mover and shaker in almost all these different facets, right? And all of these different ways and opportunities to grow. Like you have to be right there to grow with it. And I think especially that was what was so important about, not important obviously, but that was so telling, right, with my website going down. My website went down, and all of a sudden, all of the stuff that I did in terms, especially the writing aspect of it, I couldn't do anymore, right? Like I literally, figuratively could not write another blog post, right? But I could do video. And again, and for those who may not know, I think a lot of people, especially those who follow the podcast and follow me on just various social media outlets, right? I could tell you I'm actually as introverted as they come. I got a sociology degree from Florida State. Also, I was exercise physiology, sociology degree from Florida State, and I just love people watching and observing and sitting in my own world, right? But what tends to happen, especially in the outwardly appearance, right? You see me, I'm doing podcasts. You see me, I'm doing Facebook Lives, and I'm doing Instagram Lives, and I'm on Twitter, and I'm on all these other social media outlets, and it's because I know that my purpose is so great that I can't allow something like me being introverted stop me from being able to reach out and touch someone. Because my goal, again, we talked, my goal is to really try to prevent, right, the preventable death, right? And in medicine, there is so much of it, especially in the African American community, right, where we're dying at alarming rates for every single disease more than other races, right? Like we're just not doing well when it comes to diseases like diabetes, when it comes to diseases like hypertension, right? Like it's a battle we're losing, right? We're not winning. We know that the battle's been going on, but we still have not turned that corner. So when I do these things, right, when I do the Facebook posts, when I do all of these things on the outwardly social aspect of it, I understand that its greater purpose, right, is to serve, the one person who may read it and say, you know what, Dr. Berry told me to get myself in to see the doctor, and that's what I'm about to do, right? Like that's really my goal, right? Like my goal is to get, again, I know I may not be able to turn everybody. I may not be able to, hopefully I will. I'm maybe not able to turn, millions and droves to become healthier, right? But I want to be able to spark that mind that becomes and says, you know what, like I'm ready to take control of my own health care and I'm ready to go. That's going to be the satisfying reward for me. I think that's been one of the biggest positives what we've done with, the Lunch and Learn brand is seeing people come to me and say, hey, Dr. Pierre, I saw you talked about, headaches. I saw you talked about colon cancer. I saw you talk about prostate cancer. I saw you talk about diabetes. I saw you talk about all these things here, and it made me go get my myself checked out, right? Because again, when we try to do these things, we try to make it so that there's no excuse. Like, you have no excuse no more. I understand medicine is this very daunting, field, right, where it's 100 different terminology and it's essentially a different language, right? But when you turn on this podcast, when you turn on the live stream, when you read the blogs, you understand that I do that so you can read it and say, okay, I get it now. And then go to your doctor and follow up and ask questions, right? Like, that's always been the goal, right? And that's one of the reasons why I'm so appreciative, right, of being able to get out my way, right? And that's the title of this, podcast, right? Like, get out of your own way, right? A lot of us are standing in the way of greatness, right? Because we're allowing ourselves to sabotage and, detour us from our path, right? We're allowing ourselves to tell us that, you know what? If you do that, so-and-so is going to laugh at you, so don't do it. We're allowing ourselves to say, you know what? You've tried that in the past and it didn't work and it's not going to work now. Or you know what? Everything's not 100% perfect to the T. And because it's not 100% perfect, I don't want you to do it. And that's where we're at here, right? And that's why when I talked about, the 50th episode, like, I reminisce when I did, episode number 1, right? When I did episode number 1 on the live stream, I remember I was so nervous. I remember, I had to have my lighting right, like all of these crazy, scenarios that I was trying to work on to try to make sure that, everything was right for the first episode, right? Same thing, and especially when I fast forward to, 50, right? And I understand that I've done episodes in my car. I've done episodes in the hospital. I've done episodes outside the hospital. Wherever I could do an episode, I've done episodes at. And the big portion of it is because I understand that the people don't care if it's not super perfect, right? They just want to make sure it's good, right? So at the end of the day, as long as I'm giving you guys good content, you don't care if it's not at the best angle or with the best video camera and the best lighting. That's the least of your concerns, right? Your concerns is just making sure that, at least once a week, Dr. Barry does his live stream, and now at least once a week, Dr. Barry does his podcast, right? And, I get to learn off something on this podcast. And, I think that's the goal, right? I just want to keep teaching. I want to keep, and again, when I teach, you learn as well too. The more podcast episodes I do, the more confident I am in doing podcast episodes, right? Same thing with the more videos. The more videos I do, the more comfortable I get in doing those videos. And that's where I want to have all of my circle of friends, right? Especially the ones who are listening. You could assume I'm calling you guys out, right? Like, if you don't feel 100% confident when you're talking about me, or when you're talking, if you don't feel 100% confident when you're talking around me, I'm going to correct you very quickly, right? Like, my friends joke and say, like there's not an idea that I don't like, right? And in this time of age, yeah, they're right. Like, I want to do it all. Like, again, when I started and jumped into this foray of podcasting, it was something that was always in the back of my mind. If you go on, lunchlearnpod.com, you'll see that my initial thought process was to do the doctor's chair, which I'm still going to do. But my initial podcast idea was to do that first, right? Because I wanted to, almost like an interview style, because I listen to podcasts and that's what I kind of like. But I wanted to kind of do it from a physician aspect, if you may. And like I said, we're still going to do that. But when I jumped into the podcast for Ray, it was because, the people demanded it, right? Like, I had people who kept saying, hey, I love the videos, man, but I don't really have time to watch that video like that. Like, are you going to be able to put it on podcast, right? And so the people ask, and and I had to deliver. I did deliver a little late. I will be honest. I was still a little reluctant, and it was still that voice that said, "Oh man, just you're already doing blogging, you're already doing video, like." Don't try to clutter yourself and add on something like podcasting, but it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. And the reason why I believe that, because I already know it's made me a better speaker. It's made me more aware of my voice inflections. It's made me more aware of the speed I'm talking, and it's just made me more confident in doing so, right? So this is going to help me in the long run when I already know it. But this is something that I wouldn't have done 2 years ago, right? Let alone 1 year. I wouldn't have done this 2 years ago. If you'd have told me in less than 2 years, and honestly, now I have to look at the date, but it's almost been about a year since I kind of started with the coaching. If you'd have told me in less than a year, right, I would have gone from having just a blog on blogger.com to a full-blown website to become the best-selling author that I am, to have a podcast, to have these weekly videos, to have the blog and everything. If you'd have told me that, I would have told you you're crazy, right? If you would have told me, people would have been calling me to feature me on radio shows, to feature me on different podcasts. I would have said you're crazy, right? Like if you would have told me that in the Black History month edition of Essence magazine that my name would have been in there, in 10 years down the line, if I go to look at my magazine, I can point to my name. Like if you would have told me that, I would have probably put you in the nearest psych facility, right? I would have did that because I would say, this person is clearly crazy because there's no way I'm doing all of that. But here I am. Not even, like I said, now I just looked at the calendar. It's not even a year, right? So really not even a year since I went full-blown gung-ho with everything Dr. Barry until I was coached and I was, and taught up and, kind of had those mental roadblocks removed, right? And it hasn't been a full year yet, right? So imagine, what I'll do with 2 years. Imagine what I'll do with 3 years. Now that the sky's the limit. And I joke and say now that, almost being a physician is becoming like the side job. Like taking care of patients is something I do, especially in the hospital setting. But I also got patients around the world that I got to get my message to, right? So, I still got to, do these podcasts. I still have to do the live stream videos. I still have to write the blogs, right? Because there's someone who I may not be able to be in the vicinity of, but my words are going to be enough to kind of help turn that corner. So that's, and so that's where that's at, right? That's where, I wanted to kind of talk and, kind of turn this episode into, right? I just wanted to kind of turn it to a sounding board for all of, the professionals, especially the professionals who are following and listening, but in particular to everybody, right? To everyone to kind of get out your way, right? And again, we always will tie it back to medicine, right? Get out your way, right? Get that mental roadblock that says you're not going to lose weight out of there. Get that mental roadblock that says, you can't control your diabetes out of there. Get that roadblock that says you can't control your high blood pressure out of there. Get that roadblock that says, I don't know what I'm going to do with my depression. Get it out of there, right? Because you have the support. I'm here to, make sure that path is as less cluttered as it is possible, right? Because again, I can tell you right now, even though I've mentioned all the stuff I do, there's still stuff that says, what, should I really be doing that? Now, fortunately for us, these days, it doesn't last that long. When I get to the point when I have an idea, I just go, right? I was in my private Facebook group, and I was just kind of discussing, what was going on for the week. And, the idea came, mid video. That I said, what, I'm going to start trying to interview patients, right? So that's going to be the next step here on the podcast, right? Because soon, because there's one thing for me to talk about liver disease or diabetes, right? But it's another thing to have a person with diabetes, with liver issues, come and, talk from their perspective, right? Because a lot of the information that you will read or you'll see on TV is always from the perspective of the person who has to treat, but it's never from the person who tends to have to deal with said treatment, right? So be on the lookout for that, right? And again, I've gotten so much feedback from last week's episode, with Maria Davis Pierre, and some people have asked, yes, Maria Davis Pierre is my wife. It was funny. It was something that we didn't even, purposely not mention it as much. But we were just kind of going with the flow of the interview, and it just never really kind of came up. I think she mentioned it towards the end. But and that was an extremely interesting topic, on death, dying, and grief and loss. So please check out, episode 33 as well. So again, this is Dr. Barry, and signing off on another episode of the Lunch and Learn. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry. I hope you enjoyed that episode like I enjoyed giving you that episode for your listening pleasure. If you want, please join the community. Please tell a friend to join the community. I'm over at Twitter. I'm over at Facebook. I'm even over at Pinterest. Like, I'm everywhere where you want to be. I'm probably there. My username is pretty much the same everywhere you go. lunchlearnpod.com. lunchlearnpod at Facebook, lunchlearnpod at Twitter, and the hashtag that we're using, especially when you're listening to the episode and you want to share it and you want to tell all your friends, is lunchlearnpod as well, all one word. And before I let you go, please do me a favor. Head over to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, wherever you like to listen to your podcast. And even if you like listening on my website, leave me a comment, leave me a review, let me know how I'm doing. Leave me even a comment to say, hey, I'd like to hear about this topic versus that topic, and I'll be gladly able to kind of squeeze that in on the schedule. And you guys continue to have a great and blessed day, and I'm going to see you guys next week.